Well, WWF, of course, we're coming to Doha wanting two things. We're wanting urgency and we're wanting ambition. Right now, clearly, the reaction from our politicians is completely out of line in terms of what the science says is required. And we're getting serious warning signs just in terms of experience of climate change, the extreme weather events that we've been experiencing in 2012 alone. And then, of course, we've had these reports that just come out ahead of Doha, World Bank report, the International Energy Agency report, the UNEP report talking about the gap that we're facing in terms of dealing with climate change. So with all of those dire warnings, we would hope that the politicians would sit up in this conference and realize that they have a huge responsibility to respond to that urgency. Their levels of ambition are really low as it stands right now. That's what we'd like to get out of Doha.
And let's talk about the science, because I think the head of the IPCC, Dr. Rajendra Pachauri, will be addressing the plenary on Wednesday. Why is the policy so divorced from the science? Because, as you say, predictions of 6 degrees, 4 degrees, and the target that has been agreed is 2 degrees.
Yes.
How can we explain that?
Well, I think that it's also the nature of the talks itself, and we've had serious, I believe, blockages in these talks because of a lack of trust. We believe that that is the key problem here, and that what we need is a rebuilding of trust. The trust between developed and developing countries. And if we look at it, what is it that needs to unlock that, and how can we build trust? Essentially, I think it takes a few things. One, developed countries have made certain commitments. They need to fulfill those commitments. So they've committed to take certain actions. They've agreed that they needed to be providing leadership and going first in terms of taking very serious cuts in emissions, and they've not fulfilled that obligation. The current pledges on the table for the next commitment period are not, it's not in line with the science. It's actually the lower levels, it's not even reaching where we need to be. And then secondly, they've committed to finance. So of course, developing countries need to take action. Many of them are taking action at national levels, but they've also said they can increase their actions if they get support. So developed countries committed to the 100 billion per annum up to 2020, and we come into Doha with no idea about where that money is actually going to come from, who's going to be delivering it. There's no clear commitments as we sit right now. Green Climate Fund has been set up, there's no money in the bank. So clearly what we're wanting to look at is how can we regain the trust when developed countries have made commitments and not fulfilled them. On the other hand, I think it's important that developing countries also do their fair share. If there's support, then surely they can increase their ambition levels as well, and they can look at moving their own economies on a path that is less carbon intensive, that in fact you plan for the transition where you're going to be less dependent on fossil fuel. So it's obviously it's about lack of trust, but there's also the other issues. Economics plays into this, competitiveness, etc. So in an environment where we're dealing with an economic crisis, people tend to be defensive about their national interests. This is a global problem. We're all in it together. And I think that there needs to be an understanding we have to all contribute a fair share to deal with the crisis.
I guess this isn't the Cup final, so we're not going to see a big result at the end. But give us an idea about what small measures we could see which would help develop and build that trust.
Well, I certainly think a critical element would be for the second commitment period to be finalized of the Kyoto Protocol, and that those who have agreed to sign on to it, that they fulfill that. And beyond just signing and agreeing to a second commitment period, is there any chance of them already signaling that they will increase their current levels of ambition? So it's not just the architecture we want, we actually want the substance. That's the more important thing. And then secondly, it is leaving Doha with a very clear sense of where the 100 billion will come from. Who's going to be delivering it? When are we going to see the money flowing? And then we need to also leave Doha with a sense of the developed countries who have not joined the second commitment period. What are their commitments going to be? Is it comparable to what the commitments are in the Kyoto Protocol, from the Kyoto Protocol countries? So we need to look at that balance happening. And then those developing countries who have not made pledges up to now, and there are a number of them who have the capability to make those pledges and take action. We want them to also say, you know, inscribe into the process what they're willing to do. And certainly there are quite big countries who have not yet done so.
And I guess on a final point, we're in a fantastic conference centre. There's some amazing works of art all around this conference centre. So we can't doubt that Qatar has put on a good show from that point of view. But many pressure groups say that it's inappropriate for a country which is based on gas and oil to be hosting this event. Give us an idea about what you think this conference could achieve by, I guess, changing perceptions of climate change in the Middle East.
Well, I think that hosting a COP, we hosted a COP in South Africa last year. It's certainly an opportunity to catalyze things. It catalyzed a growing sense of awareness around climate change amongst ordinary citizens in the country. And I believe that this has allowed, some of that to happen here. And so there are the Arab Youth Organization that has come up. So we're hoping it would leave the seeds of a growing civil society engagement in the region. It also can provide the opportunity for the Qatari government and other governments in the region to use this opportunity to start providing leadership. How do you transition your economies towards a low carbon future? How do you ensure that you shift away from fossil fuels, which we know they're dependent on? The economies are dependent on it. But how do you already lay the basis for shifting towards a future where you can move to a renewable energy dependency? And it's available. The technologies are there. It's becoming more affordable. So certainly the opportunities are there to transition towards that future. This is the opportunity. Lay the basis here. It's a wonderful moment. COP is here. Attention is here. So use this to lay the basis for leadership.
Final question. Do you think that leaders, politicians are still listening to pressure groups like WWF, like Greenpeace International? There's a strong feeling amongst some people I speak to, and they think, these green groups are just asking for too much. Why aren't they back in the real world and appreciating we have economic problems? Do you genuinely feel that world leaders are listening to you?
Well, we certainly hope that they do. And, we do try and reflect what is truthful. Well, we do reflect what's the science is telling us what to do. They've been warned. It's not as if they're not informed. And certainly when we do present what we expect, it's not unrealistic. It just takes political will. The solutions are out there. I mean, there are numbers of examples of where people have tried solutions. It works, so carry on. So it's an excuse. Political leaders will have to listen to us. There's going to be a point at which, we are engaging in these environments, we put pressure here, we lobby, we try and encourage them. But when citizens of the world start, they're already experiencing, but when they connect the dots, that in fact their experience of the impacts has got lots to do with the inaction of global leaders at these forums, then I think that they're going to be dealing with massive citizen pressure at home. And I think that is what we need to recognize, that civil society plays that role. It's an important speaking truth to power role. We provide solutions, and they cannot ignore us. And so if they are ignoring us, it would be very, very sad. I doubt that they are.